Imagine stepping back into the 1960s. Life seems simpler, right? But what if I told you that many common jobs from that era are now completely illegal? We're not talking about just outdated professions. We're talking about jobs that are now against the law. Some of these were so dangerous and unethical, you'll wonder how they ever existed in the first place. Let's start with something that sounds almost made up. The powder monkey. No, it's not a pet. This was a term for young boys, sometimes as young as 10, who worked on naval ships. Their job was to carry gunpowder from the storage magazine to the cannons during battle. It was one of the most dangerous jobs imaginable, with a high risk of being hit by enemy fire or caught in an explosion. Thankfully, child labor laws put a permanent end to this practice. Next, have you ever heard of a phrenologist? In the 60s, you could still find people practicing this pseudoscience. They claimed they could determine your personality traits, intelligence, and even criminal tendencies just by feeling the bumps on your skull. You could get a reading to help you choose a career or a spouse. As science advanced, phrenology was completely debunked and is now considered a fraudulent practice, making it illegal to offer it as a legitimate medical or psychological service. Let's move on to the world of entertainment. Back then, freak shows were a popular attraction at carnivals and circuses. These shows exploited people with physical disabilities and unusual conditions, presenting them as objects of curiosity for paying audiences. Performers were often given sensationalized names and backstories. Today, this is rightly seen as deeply exploitative and discriminatory, and laws like the Americans with Disabilities Act have made such public exhibitions illegal. Now, this next one might surprise you. In some places, you could be a rainmaker. Not the metaphorical kind, but literal ones. These were people who claimed they could induce rain, often through bizarre, unscientific methods, like firing cannons into the clouds or releasing chemicals into the air. They would travel to drought-stricken farming communities and charge for their services. Since their methods were fraudulent and often involved dangerous materials without regulation, this practice has been outlawed in favor of actual meteorological science. But it gets even more unbelievable. Think about the advertising world of the 60s, the Mad Men era. A very real and lucrative job was being a cigarette spokesperson who is also a doctor. You'd see ads featuring distinguished-looking men in white coats, reassuring the public that certain brands of cigarettes were smoother or less irritating. This blatant conflict of interest and deceptive advertising, especially using medical professionals to promote a known health hazard, is now strictly illegal. The next one is a job that thankfully no longer exists due to environmental protection laws: the bird feather collector for fashion. In the 1960s, hats and dresses adorned with exotic bird feathers were the height of fashion. This demand led to a booming trade where collectors would hunt and kill rare and beautiful birds, like egrets and birds of paradise, often to the brink of extinction just for their plumage. Acts like the Migratory Bird Treaty Act made this commercial hunting illegal, saving countless species. Here's a job that sounds harmless but had dark implications: the eugenics counselor. The eugenics movement, which promoted the idea of improving the human race through selective breeding, was still influential in the 60s. Counselors would advise individuals on marriage and family planning based on their perceived genetic fitness. This practice was rooted in racist and discriminatory ideologies and has since been condemned and made illegal as a violation of human rights. Let's talk about medicine again. Before strict regulations, people could sell patent medicines. These were over-the-counter concoctions that claimed to cure everything from baldness to cancer. A snake oil salesman, a term that originated from this practice, could create a potion with unknown, often harmful ingredients like narcotics or alcohol, and sell it with miracle claims. The establishment of agencies like the FDA made it illegal to sell unproven and unsafe medical treatments. This next one sounds like a scene from an old movie. The manual telephone operator was a huge profession. If you wanted to make a call, you'd pick up the phone and an operator, usually a woman, would ask, "Number, please," and physically connect your line to the person you were calling by plugging cables into a switchboard. This job wasn't illegal, but a specific version was wiretapping operator, before warrants were strictly required. Some operators were illicitly hired to listen in on and record private conversations for government agencies or private investigators. This blatant invasion of privacy is now a serious crime. It gets even stranger. In some rural areas, you might have found a leech collector. These individuals would wade into ponds and marshes, often using their own legs as bait to collect leeches for medical purposes. While leech therapy is making a comeback in a highly controlled, sterile medical environment, the unregulated and unhygienic practice of collecting them from the wild and selling them is now illegal due to health and safety risks. Remember the days before digital everything? A bookie's runner was a common sight in many neighborhoods. These were the foot soldiers for illegal gambling operations, or bookies. Their job was to collect bets on horse races or sporting events and deliver the money. It was a cash-based underground network that operated completely outside the law. While sports betting is being legalized in many areas now, the unregulated, unlicensed role of a runner remains very much illegal. Here's a job that put children in direct harm: the chimney sweep apprentice. While we associate this more with Victorian times, in some less regulated parts of the world, and even in isolated cases in the 60s, young, small boys were still forced to climb inside narrow, soot-filled chimneys to clean them. This was incredibly dangerous, leading to respiratory diseases and physical injuries. Modern labor laws and safety standards have, thankfully, made this form of child exploitation illegal everywhere. And it gets even more concerning. What about a radium girl? This job persisted into the mid-20th century. These were factory workers, almost always young women, who were hired to paint watch dials with self-luminous radium paint. To get a fine point on their brushes, they were instructed to lick them, ingesting deadly amounts of radioactive material. Many suffered horrific health consequences. The lethal dangers of radiation became understood, and this practice was outlawed, leading to major reforms in occupational safety. Number 14 is the body snatcher, or resurrectionist. While the peak of this gruesome trade was in the 19th century, the illegal procurement of cadavers for medical schools still happened on the sly in the 60s. Before clear laws on body donation were established, Some individuals would illegally obtain bodies for dissection. Today, this is strictly regulated by laws like the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act. But the final job is perhaps the most shocking of all, because it was presented as a form of healthcare. In the 1960s, the lobotomist was still practicing. A lobotomy was a surgical procedure that involves severing connections in the brain's prefrontal cortex. It's promoted as a treatment for mental illness. It was a crude, brutal,